This week, 11 members of Mexico's National Guard were picked up for illegally stealing Pemex crude oil. How would anyone ever know, whether you're in Canada or the US, if when you're making guacamole and you're about to eat, if those very avocados are coming from an orchard that has been taken over by cartels and caused a family to lose their entire business and livelihood? I'm Katarina Schultz. This is Borderland Dispatches, an Ironclad original. And today I'm going to be taking you guys through every single revenue stream that the cartels are using to amp up their profits and ensure that they're not solely relying on drug trafficking, human smuggling, and these sort of overt known illegal operations that they have going on. Now, over the past couple of months, the Mexican drug cartels have really ramped up operations that don't have anything to do with drugs. And that's because in the media and in governments and law enforcement, there has been an even stricter hawk eye on these cartel illicit operations. So let me take you through a few cases that we've seen go on over the past couple of weeks that have to do with the ways these Mexican drug cartels are being savvy about where they're getting their money from. Fuel theft, also known as huachicol, is the second most profitable source of income for the cartels. This has been going on for decades. We've seen headlines where pipelines, crude oil pipelines in Mexico that have been tapped into too many times or incorrectly have exploded, devastating communities and taking thousands of lives. And this continues on. Certainly over the past couple of years, the operations have become more intelligent. There seems to be this drop in the amount of explosions, but this doesn't mean that they're not doing this. Literally this week, 11 members of the National Guard, of Mexico's National Guard, were picked up for illegally stealing Pemex crude oil. For some context, Pemex is a state-run monopoly that controls all of Mexico's petroleum. And so anytime their pipelines are being broken into, it directly affects them as a business. They're actually bankrupt and are always cutting losses and talking about major issues that they're having in terms of making money and dealing with organized crime and trying to continue to operate while also dealing with cartels, extorting workers, stealing crude oil, and destroying by tapping into pipelines that run through typically rural regions. Now, these 11 members of the National Guard were literally caught red-handed escorting a fuel tanker in Guanajuato that was stealing and then transporting stolen crude oil. So basically, according to reports, someone called into police that a fuel theft was going on, which is not uncommon in Mexico, particularly in these sort of regions where there are a lot of pretty accessible fuel pipelines. And so when police showed up, the National Guard members tried to kind of play it off as they were making sure that it was safe. That wasn't the case. This was an illegal fuel theft operation. And time again, we see this happening where when an illegal operation is so lucrative, you will typically see collusion from law enforcement and government authorities. That's really the only way that something like this can function and can become as lucrative as it is. Now, fuel theft and trafficking this crude oil is the second most lucrative operation for cartels. It comes right after, of course, drug trafficking and smuggling. Now, no official numbers were released of just how much fuel was stolen or attempted to be stolen during this National Guard operation, but according to Pemex numbers, around 17,000 barrels of fuel is stolen per day. If you put that into perspective, just imagine how much fuel is being stolen across all of Mexico on a regular basis and just how profitable that becomes for the cartels, meaning they're able to pay off local officials to ensure that these operations run smoothly. They're paying off the people that are authorities at the border so that they can move this crude oil into the United States and sell it to those local American refineries. Earlier this month, the US Treasury literally sanctioned 3 Mexican nationals who are allegedly part of the CJNG for running the operation of stealing crude oil and transporting it into the US through Texas. They were labeling this stolen crude oil as waste oil so that they can get it into the US. They were paying off and bribing, no, that is the same thing. They were bribing Pemex employees, bribing border officials, and had already set up a network so that once this crude oil that was labeled waste oil got into the US, they could essentially wash their hands of any worry or responsibility for the crime that they had committed and purely profit off of this oil that was now being used in the United States. Now, it's very important for me to mention that there are people that have been infiltrated on both sides of the border in order for an operation of this scale to even work properly. And so when the Treasury sanctioned these 3 individuals, it was said in the report that small oil companies in the US were complicit in buying this oil. Why? Because they were buying it at a lower price. Certainly, they knew what was happening. And there were complicit brokers ensuring that this deal went through. And I say this time and time again, and really just like with anything, whether it's US border officials that are accepting payments from the cartel to ensure that human and drug smuggling efforts go through smoothly. This is the same thing that's happening with this oil theft. And if you really think about it, oil theft is a lot easier to sort of lay low. Like it goes more under the radar because you aren't smuggling human beings, you aren't smuggling fentanyl pills, something that is so obviously illegal and can garner a lot of attention. This oil, once you label it as waste oil and it gets sent to the US, where a US based smaller oil company has already made the payment and is waiting for it, I mean, come on.